Blinding light surged across the battlefield as the hero's blade clashed violently with the Demon King's final attack, raw power crackling in every direction. In that breathtaking moment, his strike tore through the Dark Monarch, ending a war that had swallowed countless lives. As the monster's massive body collapsed, blood and energy spilled like a storm, painting the skies crimson. The final message burned itself into the world's memory. The Demon King had fallen, slain by the chosen hero of another realm. From the ashes of war, cheers rose for the lone warrior who had delivered peace to the continent. His figure, standing tall and resolute, became a symbol of salvation for those who once despaired. A soft exhale escaped his lips as the weight of his mission lifted. With eyes full of quiet relief, he looked ahead and whispered a thought he had buried for too long: he could finally go home. And then, as if answering that unspoken desire, a divine voice echoed from the heavens. Bathed in divine light, an ethereal figure descended from the stars, her voice calm yet resonant as she acknowledged his choice to save the world once more. There was no celebration, just a quiet, celestial grace recognizing his sacrifice. Floating amidst the cosmic void, she praised him for walking the path of a savior again. Her presence radiated both serenity and power, as if holding the threads of fate in her hands. Facing her, he exhaled with weariness and a hint of sarcasm, reflecting on how every encounter with her came down to choices ones he never truly had. Still, all he wanted now was a simple confirmation that he could finally return home. She responded gently, promising to send him back to his original world. But he wasn't done. His voice rose with years of frustration as he questioned her authority to abduct him, exploit his talent for 2 decades, and now dismiss him without so much as a reward. His demand wasn't for riches or glory, just one simple wish: to keep the memories he had forged during this painful journey. A piece of the life he fought for, to carry with him. Her response was distant yet firm. Time, she explained, had remained still in his world while he was gone. No days were lost, no years stolen. As far as Earth was concerned, he had never left. He stood silently beneath the vast sky, his breath catching in his throat as he looked upward. No words came, only the weight of 2 decades of struggle, lingering on his lips like frost in the cold stillness. Hovering in her palm like a fragile keepsake, he sighed in surrender, his pride giving way to exhaustion. With a weary glance upward, he muttered his final request: just get it over with and send him home. Glowing rings of light spiraled across the void, carrying the divine promise of justice. Her voice echoed through the stars, assuring him that his time and sacrifice would not go unrewarded. Nestled within her open hand, he stood motionless, his gaze lowered, his armor faintly shimmering as if bracing himself for whatever compensation the gods deemed fair. A radiant burst of golden light pierced the darkness as divine words echoed softly: he wouldn't remember this reward himself. Yet, from the heart of that brilliance, a fragment of godly power emerged, offered as a silent gift, one final blessing for a forgotten hero. As the energy swirled around him, a final truth was revealed. This new world would not be fixed or static. It would bend, evolve, and shift according to the choices he made. And with that weight settling on his shoulders, he could only stand in silence. His voice broke through the silence, low and resolute, as a single word slipped from his lips, charged with the weight of a new beginning and the burden of power yet to unfold. Standing in the divine palm, he looked up with a mix of defiance and desperation, asking for even the smallest clue to guide him. But the answer came swiftly, unyielding and absolute: no. Frustration flared in his voice as he lashed out, demanding to keep just one thing: his memories of the world he'd bled for. But her silent smile and gentle gaze offered no change, only quiet finality. A single touch sent him reeling backward as the divine command rang out, stern, unrelenting, and final. There was no more room for questions, only departure. Panic flared across his face as he threw up a hand, desperation cutting through his voice. He wasn't ready, not yet. Something was still unresolved. His shout echoed through the void, raw and unfiltered: I'm not done talking. But the goddess, already mid-cast in divine light, remained composed, her hands moving with silent finality as the transfer began. With a serene smile and glowing eyes that held the weight of destiny, she uttered the final decree: he would return to where it all began, to the world that would now shape his fate. A final promise drifted from the heavens: she would continue to watch over him. But her voice faded quickly, replaced by a rush of air and a blur of light as the descent began. tumbling helplessly through the void, he screamed against the pull of space and fate. His figure spun downward, swallowed by the brilliance of rebirth. His face twisted in shock and disbelief as the fall intensified, hair whipping upward, mouth frozen in a silent scream caught between worlds and with no control over where he'd land. Light exploded around him as his body neared impact, the brilliance fading into sharp silence. Slowly, his eye flickered open, confused, dazed, and barely able to register the world beginning to take shape before him. Gasping awake in a wash of sunlight, he clutched his forehead, disoriented and squinting at the glare. The softness of the bed, the familiar ceiling, it all felt unreal, as if the chaos of another world had been nothing more than a dream. Still groggy, he sat up with a sluggish yawn, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. The warmth of the room and weight of reality pressed in, unfamiliar in its normalcy after so long in a world of gods and monsters. As he glanced at the glowing screen in his hand, something felt off, not in a bad way, but in a way that left him unnervingly clear-headed. The time read 9:02, yet it felt like he'd just awoken from a lifetime. His eyes narrowed at the flood of messages on the screen, all from his manager, all increasingly frantic. The normalcy of it hit like a wave. Late for work, overslept. As if nothing had changed at all. Bursting out the door in a frenzy, he tore down the street with panic in his voice and a backpack flailing behind him. The divine fall was over. Now came the rush of real-world chaos he barely remembered how to handle. Inside the convenience store, he bowed repeatedly under the weight of a scolding. His manager's voice rang out sharp and frustrated, while he apologized over and over, grounded once again in the ordinary struggles of his former life. Forcing a shaky smile, he muttered under his breath with bitter irony. After 20 years as a world-saving hero, the first thing he wished for now was to experience being poor for just one day. As a discount lunch tray slid across the counter, he stared at it with quiet despair. The mundane reality of tight wallets and cheap meals hit harder than any battle. How was this his life again? Leaning on the counter with a heavy sigh, he stared blankly ahead, thoughts spiraling. Even with 2 jobs, the overdue rent loomed like a shadow, and deep down, he knew this one wouldn't last either. Just as the bitter thought crossed his mind, a strange light stirred in the air around him. His eyes widened, breath hitching as something unseen brushed against reality. Huh? Glowing lines of data shimmered into existence around him as he stood frozen, staring into the air before him. Something unseen had activated, like the world itself was rebooting in response to him. His eyes widened, lips parting in stunned silence as multicolored lights danced before him. Whatever was happening, it wasn't normal, and it was happening to him. A soft murmur escaped him as the world around blurred into radiant white, rainbow hues trailing through the air like static. He could only whisper one word, unsure if he was awake or awakening. A crystalline message floated in the ether: awakened. The word pulsed with power, shattering the mundane veil around him as new forces stirred into motion. Armored warriors and arcane users emerged through the light, each radiating strength and intent. They were the awakened individuals reborn with abilities beyond normal humans, now simply known as users. Suspended above the city in a glowing circle of magic, a figure conjured fire from her palm as if it were second nature. It had been 5 years since augmented reality fused with fantasy, reshaping the world into something unrecognizable, something magical. Armed with bows, blades, and courage, fighters clashed within chaotic landscapes known as field zones of power that began sprouting across Earth. In just a few years, the world had shifted, its economy and survival now tied to the strange resources these places offered. Fanged beasts with glowing eyes and savage claws fell beneath cold steel as users unleashed their newfound power. It was their role now to fight, conquer, and carve order from the chaos of monster-infested fields. Golden coins rained through blood-red light, a reminder that in this new world, even the smallest tasks within the fields could turn a profit. Danger had become an economy and survival a business. Dozens of desperate hands reached skyward, clawing for falling coins bathed in golden light. In a world where power meant profit, everyone dreamed of becoming a user no matter the cost. Jewels and currency floated through the air like tempting bait, glimmering with promise. The unknown world was dangerous, but its rewards were intoxicating. Still, not every user struck it rich. Most paid the price without ever tasting the honey. While some were blessed with extraordinary abilities, the moment they awakened wielding rare weapons and magic with ease, others found themselves powerless, struggling to survive in a world where strength decided everything. At the very peak of power stood a legend, Muhammad Al, the world's #1 ranker. The first to hit level 70 and bearer of the SS grade trait Dragon Speech. He was a symbol of what every user dreamed of becoming. With the world watching, Muhammad Al posted a video to his personal channel. It wasn't just an update, it was a declaration from the top, sparking immediate buzz across millions of screens. Phones lit up across the city as crowds paused mid-step, curiosity pulling them in. A single video, posted by the top ranker, was enough to grip the attention of millions in moments. Huddled around a single screen, students gasped and laughed in disbelief, eyes locked on the footage. Whatever Muhammad Al had posted, it was impossible to look away. With his cloak billowing and sword at the ready, he charged headfirst into a corrupted wasteland teeming with monstrous limbs. Alone, unshaken, and unstoppable, his every step demanded the world's attention. Grotesque monsters with pulsing veins and tangled tentacles erupted from the ground, their shrieks splitting the air as they charged. The battlefield was alive with chaos, and he was diving straight into it. A radiant crest ignited in midair, its golden emblem slashing through the void with divine force. The battlefield lit up in a swirl of energy, the mark of a power far beyond ordinary users. A grotesque creature writhed in agony, golden tendrils bursting from its flesh as dark smoke curled behind it. Above the chaos, a single phrase lingered, the dream of all mages, hinting at a power worth killing for. With flames erupting behind him and a blazing spell lighting up the battlefield, Muhammad Al descended like a god of war. It was the kind of magic every fantasy reader dreamed of, pure, overwhelming, and unforgettable. Explosions ripped through the horde as searing flames engulfed the monsters, their agonized screams drowned beneath the roar of destruction. His magic tore through them like judgment from the skies. The screen lit up with cosmic destruction, and the students watching it nearly lost their minds. "Meteor," they screamed, faces twisted in awe and disbelief. This wasn't just magic, it was spectacle on a godly scale. Fingers trembled around the phone as flames danced across the screen. "Crazy," someone whispered, unable to believe they were witnessing a spell once thought to exist only in fiction, now unleashed in reality. Staring at the screen in disbelief, students murmured questions that echoed worldwide. A grade field taken solo. Even at level 70, the sheer impossibility of it left them stunned. This was power beyond logic. Blazing meteors crashed down in waves, consuming everything in blinding flames. Nothing survived their descent, scorched earth, shattered monsters, and a message clear as day: nothing could stand in his way. A final meteor tore through the sky like divine judgment, slamming into the battlefield with explosive force. The flames surged higher, turning the landscape into a burning inferno of annihilation. As the smoke cleared, he stood alone in the scorched ruins, unshaken and victorious. Not even monsters capable of leveling cities could withstand the fury he unleashed. Against him, devastation was a certainty. The broken corpses of monsters lay scattered across the cracked earth, steam rising from their charred remains. How could they ever hope to defy the fury of nature itself? And as the footage faded to black, one final message lingered. With a quiet smirk and a calm voice, he leaned into the camera. The screen darkened around him, tension thick as silence, until his final words echoed out, unforgettable and chilling. Bathed in golden light, Muhammad Al stood tall with his staff in hand and a finger to his lips. With calm precision, he named the spell SS-grade Meteor Rain and issued a cryptic countdown. 1 week from now, everything would change. Suspended in radiant light, the elemental ring gleamed with unmatched elegance. This wasn't just a relic, it was the first and only publicly revealed SS-grade artifact, and now it was the prize of a global challenge. Bathed in digital glow, the screen declared its worth, an accessory so powerful, every magic-type user craved it. The elemental ring wasn't just rare, it was the stuff of dreams, the peak of magical ambition. As the video played on, the comments section exploded with disbelief. Viewers fixated on the ring, stunned that even Muhammad Al owned just one. Silence lingered on screen, proof that the world had just been shaken. A hand slapped the phone shut with clear irritation. With a scoff, the viewer dismissed the spectacle, annoyed not by the power on display, but by the arrogance behind it. "What a jerk," she muttered. Another voice chimed in, this time more grounded. With a serious look, he pointed out the obvious: offering such a prize alone was monumental, enough to shake the balance of power on its own. Seated across from each other in a sunlit cafe, she crossed her arms and sighed. To her, the offer wasn't generosity, it was bait. He wasn't giving the artifact away, he was dangling it like a challenge. Irritated and clutching her phone, she scoffed at the absurdity of the offer. An SS-grade skill was already the pinnacle, how could anyone surpass it? She saw through it immediately. This wasn't an opportunity, it was a trap veiled in magical conditions. With a confident smile, he extended the glowing ring toward the viewer, calm and resolute. He made it clear: no panel of judges, no contest rules, he alone would determine who was worthy. Her frustration boiled over as she pointed out the obvious flaw: he alone would decide the outcome. To her, it was nothing but a sham. He had no real intention of giving the elemental ring to anyone. Unable to contain her outrage, she slammed her cup on the table and shouted in a mix of fury and envy, calling him a jealous jerk. Her indignation filled the room as she fumed over how infuriating he was. Though many viewers couldn't help but envy the overwhelming display of power, their fascination quickly turned into obsession. The video exploded in popularity, with news segments and influencers everywhere dissecting Muhammad Al's SS-grade skill and the mysterious item he flaunted. His flex had unintentionally become a global sensation. Speculation ran wild across the media, with experts and reporters questioning the authenticity of the elemental ring and even debating whether it was truly SS-grade. But despite the flurry of theories and hot takes, to most people, Muhammad Al's challenge felt like an unreachable tale, a fantasy far beyond their grasp. Under a peaceful blue sky, a foot clad in simple sandals stepped onto the grass. A curious, round creature with wide eyes looked up, startled by the sudden appearance, its tiny body frozen in surprise as if sensing the beginning of something extraordinary. Startled by the sudden movement, the round creature leapt into the air as the young man fell backward into the tall grass, caught off guard by the unfamiliar surroundings and the unexpected encounter. He stood silently beneath the warm sunlight, his eyes narrowed with confusion as he tried to make sense of what just happened. With strange creatures now calmly observing him from the grass, it felt like peace had returned, but something about the atmosphere hinted that this tranquility was only temporary. Two fingers traced a swift arc through the air, as if casting a spell or activating a hidden mechanism, slicing the darkness with deliberate intent. Flaming meteors rained down from a celestial rift, their fiery trails painting the sky with destruction as they hurtled toward the earth like divine judgment. Bathed in divine fire and shadow, he stood with glowing eyes beneath the meteor storm, his hand raised in silent command as if he were the one who summoned the heavens' wrath. A blazing meteor smashed into the earth with catastrophic force, engulfing everything in a blinding explosion as shockwaves ripped through the battlefield like the wrath of a god. Surrounded by swirling smoke and glowing embers, he stood atop a jagged pillar of stone, silent and unmoved, like a lone sovereign surveying the destruction he had unleashed. Flames surged along the cracked cliffside, climbing like a living tide as heat shimmered through the scorched air. His power had not just struck, it had ignited the entire world around him. As the last embers drifted down from the sky, he stood in silence, staring at the devastation with a dazed expression, barely able to process the fact that he had just cast meteor rain. Still catching his breath in the smoky aftermath, he looked up with a wide, thrilled grin, throwing a thumbs up toward the sky as he shouted in admiration, genuinely blown away by the grandeur of Muhammad Al's meteor rain. With an eager grin and trembling excitement, he uploaded the video titled Elemental Ring Event Participation, his heart pounding as the view count started at 0, his bold challenge to the world officially launched. The man at the computer jolted in disbelief, his face twisted in astonishment as he stared at the screen, unable to process what he was seeing. Elsewhere, news of the video spread like wildfire. One viewer clutched his notepad in shock, while another nearly dropped his coffee, both stunned by the bold entry submitted by a complete unknown. Fingers danced rapidly across the keyboard in a dimly lit room, illuminated only by the screen's glow. Somewhere, someone had begun analyzing or responding to the video with intense urgency. Comments poured in at lightning speed as viewers debated the authenticity of the display. Some questioned the field's level, others speculated on the skill's true nature, each voice adding to the frenzy surrounding the mysterious, world-shaking video. The digital world erupted in collective disbelief as a single message flashed across the screen. Muhammad al-Lost. Shock rippled through countless anonymous users, their expressions frozen in awe and confusion, unable to process what they had just witnessed. As the shock settled, a new message popped up. Just. Who is this person? The screen glowed with curiosity, the username insignificant compared to the growing buzz.